so excited to have you here today for a really cute and fun amigurumi project in the wheat stitch. So we're going to be making this cute little clam. I have not stitched mine in here, but you can, especially if it's for a child. If it is for a child, maybe something different than safety eyes just to be safe with it. But I leave my list because I kind of like being able to take the purl out. But this is a cute wheat stitch, texture-packed amigurumi that is really fun to make. So I did my best to make seaming at a minimal when it comes to this, working it as easy as possible. And we have that cute little purl with, I used makeup to do the blush on there. If you have any eyeshadow or blush that's pink, that is so cute to add a little pop of like blush on there. So for this project today, you're going to want some yarn. On camera, I'm going to be showing you this My Ami yarn from Hirschner's. This is fun to work with. There are so many colors. So I am enjoying working this yarn for amigurumi. It was designed for amigurumi, which is why it's awesome for it. The first sample I did, I used the Hirschner's worsted yarn, and you can see that's really cute as well. So when it comes to amigurumi, they're not very big projects. You can always just try what you want, but if you want a specific look, definitely purchase the yarn that you see that amigurumi in, because as you'll see through my photos for this pattern, I've done it in several different yarns. One of them being Feels Like Bliss from Lion Brand, and it has a completely different look and feel to it. Now this yarn, I want to do a disclaimer. This yarn is what I would deem an advanced yarn. So not pattern, I'm talking just about the yarn right now. This is an advanced yarn, and the reason why is because whenever you have a yarn that has this much fuzz, especially when you're kind of doing tighter stitches, it is difficult to see your stitches. You almost have to feel your stitches. So if you're a beginner crocheter, I do not recommend using this yarn until you've gotten used to the pattern or the project in a yarn that's not as fuzzy, but it does turn out really, really cute, and this Feels Like Bliss. And I'll have links for all of this inside the pattern, or at the bottom of my YouTube video, you can click to go purchase some of these yarns. So the colors I'll be using today is this white, of course, for the purl. And then I've got this pink. This will be on the inside of the clam. This is the ballerina. And then the outside of the clam, I'm going to be doing in this bright rosy color. You'll want some scissors to fasten off those ends, a yarn needle to weave any ends in. The crochet hook I'm using today is a 4mm. With this Lion Brand Bliss, though, I just want to add this is a thicker yarn. I end up going up to a 4.5mm. Then you'll want a stitch marker, some safety eyes if you choose to do safety eyes. But like I said, if you are making this for a child, I highly recommend just using some black yarn and making your eyes stitched on. And then, of course, some fluff to fill it with. Now you can go with fiber fill, which is what I have here, or you can use yarn scraps, whatever you want. We are only going to be filling the purl, so you don't really need much for it. And as far as these eyes go, I do have these ones linked. You can use any type of safety eye you want. I bought this pack off of Amazon. I like having the different sizes on hand. So let's go ahead and get started. Now to get started, we're going to start by making the 2 pieces for the outside shell of the clam. So we're going to be working that beautiful wheat stitch. We're going to make these 2 pieces to join together. For the very first one, you're going to make it, and then we're going to fasten off. This is before the ruffles. The ruffles are made after. And then the second piece, you're going to make the shell part and not fasten off. So just want to prepare you for the process that we're doing. And after that, we're going to be making these circles and then joining to these first pieces, and then we'll be joining it all together and doing ruffles. And then the purl is made separately. So let's go ahead and get started with making this wheat stitch portion of this clam. To do that, we are going to create a magic ring or a magic circle, place our hook into there. You can go ahead and chain 1 to get started. Chain 1s at the beginning of every round are not counted as a stitch. They're just a turning or a beginning of round chain. So we're going to start by doing 12 single crochet stitches inside this magic ring. Now, after crocheting the 12, you're going to grab your tail end, and we are going to pull that close. I don't like to do all the way until after we start this next round, because that way we have a bit more space before we're tightening down these first stitches in our round. Now we're going to join to the very first stitch of the round. You can tighten that down, and then we're going to turn our work. Now for this round, we are going to be working into the back loops only. If you've never worked into the back loops, when we look at a stitch and we're going through the stitch as if we would with our crochet hook, there's 2 loops that we're going through that we look at on the top. We're only going to be going through that back loop here. So that's how we're going to be working this next round. You'll also want to grab your stitch marker and mark the first stitch of every single round just to keep track. It's super helpful. So working in the back loop only for this round, we are going to single crochet 2 single crochet stitches into each stitch around. So we will be increasing from 12 stitches to 24 stitches at the end of round 2. Now I will warn you, the very last stitch of every single round, because it's the one we joined in, can be a little bit hard to see at times. So be sure to count your stitches and make sure you're going into the same that you joined to and turn. That will also be the very last stitch of the round. So now we've got our stitch marker in the first stitch of this round. We are going to go through that stitch and slip stitch to join. And then I'm going to turn our work again. And now we're going to be doing 2 rounds of the puff stitch rounds. So I can tighten this down a little bit towards the center now, and you can weave that in whenever you want. But now we're going to do the puff stitch. So this is our first stitch of this round, and this is our second. We're going to skip this first stitch. So not the slip stitch. We're obviously skipping our slip stitch, so that does not count as a stitch. We have our first stitch and our second stitch. We're going to skip the first stitch and single crochet into the second stitch. That's our first stitch of the round. Now we're going to yarn over and go back into that skip stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop and pull that loop up to the height of the first loop on the hook, yarn over and go back into that same skip stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop. And now we have 5 loops on our hook. We are going to yarn over and pull through the first 4, and then yarn over and pull through the remaining 2 to complete that puff stitch. Mark the very first stitch of this round. And notice I don't always chain 1 at the beginning of the round. You can, if you would like to chain 1, it does give you a little bit more space at times. But sometimes I don't even like to work the chain 1 at the beginning of the round because it just adds bulk. It's whatever's comfortable for you. You can do it either way. Now we're going to look at our next 2 stitches. We're going to skip the next stitch and single crochet into the next. Now working back into that skip stitch, yarn over, insert your hook into the skip stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop. Do that again. Yarn over and pull through the first 4 loops on the hook, and then yarn over and pull through 2 to complete that stitch. And we're going to be repeating this all the way around for this round. So skip the next, single crochet into the next stitch. Working back into that skip stitch, work a puff stitch. And we're going to repeat that all the way around. Now for round 4, we can move our stitch marker, join to that very first stitch of the round. And now we're going to turn our work, and we're going to repeat the last round. You can chain 1 if you want, but you don't have to. It's completely up to you if you want to chain 1 at the beginning of the round. Now we're going to skip the very first stitch and single crochet into the next. And then working back into that skip stitch, we will work a puff stitch. And that's the repeat again all the way around for round 4. This is what's going to create that gorgeous wheat stitch look by working these modified puff stitches in this way. So repeat that all the way around for round 4. And now for round 5. So I've joined at the end of round 4, and we're going to turn our work. And for round 5, we are going to be working in the back loops only again and single crochet stitches. So I'm going to go in the back loop only of the very first stitch and single crochet 2 into that first stitch of this round. And then I'm going to mark that first stitch so that I don't forget which one it is. And then we're going to single crochet in the back loop only in the next. And a repeat around is going to be to do 2 single crochet stitches in the next, and then single crochet into the next. So we are doing some increases here as we work around. So work that repeat around of 2 single crochet into the next and then 1 single crochet into the next. And we will finish out that round and join and turn. Now at the end of round 5, we will have a total of 36 stitches. And now we're ready to join and turn our work, and we're going to work another round in the back loop only, increasing. So at the end of round 5, we have 36 stitches. We've joined and we've turned, and now we're going to work round 6. We will be doing 2 single crochet stitches into the very first stitch of this round, marking that first one. So we've increased again, and then we're going to single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches. So our repeat around for round 6 is to do 2 single crochets and then single crochet into each of the next 2. And we'll repeat that around, and at the end of round 6, we will have a total of 48 stitches. And now for rounds 7 through 8. So we're just going to be repeating rounds 3 through 4 where we did those puff stitches. So we're going to skip a stitch, do a single crochet into the next, work back into that skip stitch, and do a puff stitch. And that is going to be the repeat all the way around. And we're going to work this for rounds 7 and round 8. So skip a stitch, single crochet into the next, working back into that skip stitch, work the puff stitch. Now at the end of round 8, what we can do is an invisible join. So for this very first one, we are going to fasten off and join. The second one we do, we are not going to fasten off. We're going to set it aside. So I am simply going to fasten off my yarn on the first one that we make of this, and then grab my yarn needle, and we are going to do what's called an invisible join. We're going to go to the second stitch of this round. We don't want to do it into the first. We want to do it into the second to make it a little bit easier. We're going to slide our needle through, and then we're going to go back down into the very first stitch, the last stitch that we made of this round, right through the center, so through that back loop. And then we're going to just simply tug this. We've just made a mock stitch over the first stitch of that round, and now we can't tell where we started this round. And then we can weave in our end here and fasten off. Now for this first one, we are going to be setting this aside, and we're going to be making a second one. The only difference is we're not going to fasten off on our second one. We're going to leave the yarn attached. Now, once you've made your second one, like I said, this one we're going to be using later. So we're not going to fasten off. You can just go ahead and join into the very first stitch of that round. And then if you want, grab a stitch marker so it doesn't accidentally get unpulled, and put a stitch marker in the loop there. But we're going to leave this attached, and we're going to come back and work it later. We're simply just going to be setting these aside. And now we're going to grab our lighter pink yarn. This is the ballerina color, and we're going to make the inside of this clam. So this is the circle we'll be doing next. We'll be making the inside of the clam for that lighter color. Now for the inner shell, we will end up making 2, but we're also going to be attaching them as we go to diminish the amount of seaming that we're going to be doing on this. And for this, we'll be working inside the magic ring and in single crochet stitches, but we definitely want to grab a stitch marker for this one because we are going to be working continuously and not joining. So now that I've made my very first single crochet into our magic ring, I'm going to mark it. And then we are going to single crochet a total, so 5 more, but a total of 6 single crochets inside of this magic ring. And then we can go ahead and pull it closed. And this is our very first round. Now we're going to be working continuously. So you want to keep your stitch marker handy. And we are not going to be working the back loops for this one. We're just going to be doing straight up single crochet stitches. So into that very first stitch that we did, we are going to single crochet 2. And then mark the first of this round. And now for round 2, we're just going to continue to work 2 single crochet stitches into each of the stitches around. So that means we'll be increasing from 6 stitches to 12 at the end of round 2. And now for round 3, I'm simply going to move that stitch marker. We're going to do 2 single crochets into the next, placing that stitch marker at the first stitch of this round. And then we are going to single crochet into the next. We're going to repeat that all the way around. So 2 single crochets and then single crochet into the next for round 3. And at the end of round 3, we'll have 18 stitches. Now for round 4, we are going to do 2 single crochet stitches into the first, placing that stitch marker into the first stitch of the round. And then we're going to single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches. And that will be our repeat around. And at the end of round 4, we will have a total of 24 stitches. Now I'm not going to do the rest of the rounds on camera because they are quite boring, but let's talk about them. So for round 5, the repeat that we'll do is we'll do 2 single crochet stitches into the next and then single crochet into the next 3. That will give us 30 stitches. And then in round 6, we'll do 2 single crochet in the next and single crochet in the next 4. And that will give us 36 stitches. We're just increasing by 6 stitches each round. For round 7, we're going to do 2 single crochet and then single crochet into the next 5. And that will give us 42 stitches after that repeat. And then for round 8, we're going to do 2 single crochets into the next and then single crochet into the next 6 stitches around, and that will give us 48 stitches. So at the end of round 8, we'll have a total of 48 stitches and a circle, and then we'll join it together with the top of the shell. So now that we have the inner shell, we are going to place it on top of the outer shell. Now you want to make sure that the outside is facing out. The wrong side is going to be the side facing you on the outer shell. And the right side of the inner shell will be facing you as well. I'm going to move this stitch marker, and now we're going to join these 2 pieces together. Now, if you want to put a little bit of stuffing in here, you can. I have not. I like this shape just fine without it. It holds its shape really well. So we are going to be working these together, and we're going to be doing this by working through the back loop of the inner shell, and then we're going to go through the front loop of the outer shell, yarn over, and slip stitch those together. Now the reason why we're doing this is because we will later be working into the back loop of the outer shell to do some joining, as well as when we work the ruffles along the front. So we want to make sure that we're only working this through the front loop only and the back loop only of this one, so that we can work the ruffles into the loops that are left open here on the outside. So through the back loop of the inner shell, through the front loop of the outer shell, yarn over and slip stitch those together. Now your stitch counts will match up, so you're just going to continue to do this all the way around until they are joined together. Now once you've worked all the way around, we can go ahead and fasten this off. Grab your yarn needle, and once again, we are going to work a little bit more of an incognito join by doing that invisible join method. So I'm going to skip the next stitch and go to the next, and we're going to go through it as if to crochet it, and then down through the back loop only of the last stitch worked. And then you can kind of tuck your yarn in under here on the back. So that looks great. We're going to tuck our yarn in underneath, and we can kind of weave through underneath, in and out, and then fasten off. Then we're going to make a second one of these, and we're going to join it to our first one that we had made, our second one of these that we have not fastened off yet. So we're going to be doing this again, but we're still not going to fasten off this outer shell, and I'll show you why once we get there. Now we're ready to join the second one together for the inside and the outside. And I still have my yarn attached. I'm going to leave that stitch marker there to make sure that that stays attached. And we're simply going to be working this just like we did the previous one, just keeping our working yarn from the outer shell there and untouched. So through the back loop of the inside, through the front loop of the outside, and we're going to slip stitch those together. And we're going to do that all the way around and fasten off in the exact same way. But when we get done with this, we will still be able to pick up from this loop over here and go to the next steps. It's just reducing some seaming and weaving in of ends. Now it is time for us to join these two shell pieces together. And to do that, we're just going to line them up. If you want to keep any seams towards the back, that's a good idea if you just want to hide it from the front, but they're already not that noticeable. And we are going to be working through these front loop stitches here. So the ones that we didn't work before, and we're going to work through the first side, and then we're going to loop through the second side. And then we are going to slip stitch those together. And we're going to be doing that not the entire way around. So we're going to be doing that for 14 total slip stitches. And this is just what's going to join the front and the back of the shell together, so that it's kind of like a hinge that it opens. So you can join more if you want, but I did 14 and that worked out great for me in terms of the type of opening that I want. Now, the more slip stitches you do here, if you do adjust it, the more it's going to look closed. But all we need to do, see how nice that's looking, is to slip stitch those loops that remain open on the outside, 14 of them all the way across. And we are not fastening off just yet. We're going to go right into the next steps after we work 14 of these slip stitches. Now for the really fun part, and that is making these really fun ruffles all the way around the front. So we're going to be working the loops that we left unworked when we were putting the inside on here. We're going to be working those loops all the way around the bottom part of this clam. And then we're just going to rotate our work, and we're going to work them all the way around the top of the clam. So we're going to be working those ruffles all the way around the front of this opening. And you can adjust your ruffles. If you don't want them as ruffly, you can work less double crochets. If you want them more ruffly, you can work more. But what I did for mine is I did 3 double crochets into each stitch all the way around. And that's it. We're just doing some easy, nice, smooth double crochet stitches. So in every single loop that's still here, I just work 3 double crochets. And that's what creates that ruffle. And I'm going to be doing that all the way along the bottom, rotating my work once we get to the corner and working it all the way around the top until I get back to the beginning. Once we've worked all the way around, we can go ahead and fasten off and do an invisible join again to get rid of the end and weave it in. And then the final thing we need to do is create the cute little pearl to go inside of this really cute clam. You can also play around with these ruffles. They're quite movable. You can kind of reshape them to ruffle how you want them to go. So those are, like if they're looking a little bit off and you want them more floppy, I don't know what the word is, ruffly, you can adjust those ruffles to your taste. Next, we're going to be making the cute little pearl, and this is going to be worked in single crochet stitches without joining in the rounds all the way around. And we're just going to be making a ball, basically. We're going to be making a magic ring or a magic circle, and we're going to be crocheting 6 single crochets inside of that ring. And once again, a stitch marker will be your BFF. It's your BFF when you're working in the round and not joining, especially with a lighter color yarn. I highly recommend keeping one close by. Now, we are going to be following some of the same steps that we have previously when we created the circle that goes on the inside. So we're going to work through round 5, just like we did on this circle, increasing until we get to 30 stitches that we did on here. We're going to be doing that with this white yarn. So work rounds 1 through 5 the same way we did, increasing on each round through round 5, where we will have 30 stitches. So now that we have increased to 30 stitches and we are at round 5, rounds 6, 7, 8, and 9, so the next 4 rounds, we're simply going to be single crocheting into each stitch around, working around and around for those 4 rounds. We're just building up this ball here. So we're going to work 4 rounds without increasing, just single crochet. Now in round 10, this is where we are going to start doing some decreases, and we are going to be doing a invisible decrease here, and I want to show you how to do that. When you're looking at the loops, we have the front loop and the back loop of each stitch. And in order to do an invisible decrease, we're going to insert our hook into the front loop only of the first stitch, and then simply rotate our hook and go right into the front loop only of the second stitch. Yarn over and pull through those loops, and then yarn over and pull through 2. And then you're going to mark that stitch as the first stitch of this round for round 10. So we've just decreased 1. Then we're going to single crochet into the next 3. And that's going to be our repeat around. So that will be to do a decrease. So single crochet 2 together. And then single crochet into the next 3 stitches. Repeat that all the way around, and at the end of round 10, we'll have a total of 24 stitches. Now for round 11, we're going to do a decrease, and then mark that stitch as the first stitch of the round. And then we're going to single crochet into the next 2. And that's going to be our repeat around for round 11. So that's to do a decrease, single crochet 2 together. And then single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches. Work that all the way around, and at the end of round 11, we will have a total of 18 stitches. Now, at the end of round 11, we're going to take a little pause here because we're going to be adding the eyes. Whether you're doing safety eyes or you're sewing them, this is a great time to go ahead and take a break to do so. So we are going to be placing the eyes on the front. It's really, there's no difference between front and back on this, but we're going to be placing them between rows 6 and 7. Now, do you have to place them between rows 6 and 7? No, you can place them wherever you want, wherever they look good to you. You can place them as far apart as you want. You can kind of play around with that. I'm doing about 3 stitches in between for these eyes, and that's about the spacing I like. Could you do them wider? Absolutely. You can do whatever you want to do. You can move it around. It's really personal preference. You can see how it looks, how you want it to look, and then you'll simply put them in place with the backing whenever you have them in the place that you want them. Snap those down, make sure that they are secure. And then we're going to start stuffing a little bit because we're going to get tighter and tighter as we go on these last rounds to finish this out. So this is a great spot to get some stuffing done to shape it how you want. Now, the one thing I will say about amigurumi is it's more important to not overstuff your items. You don't want to stretch your stitches or see any stuffing coming through. You still want them to be squishy and flexible without overstuffing. We only have 2 rounds left here, and that's round 12 and 13. So these are also decrease rounds. So for round 12, we are going to start this round by doing a decrease and placing that stitch marker in that first stitch of this round. And then we are going to single crochet into the next. And that's our repeat all the way around. So it's decrease or single crochet 2 together and single crochet in the next. At the end of round 12, we will only have 12 stitches. Now, after round 12, this is where it's our last chance to do any additional stuffing to finish this out. So this is where we're going to make sure that it's exactly how we want it, because on this next round, we are going to be completely almost closing this to where you're not really even going to be able to stick much more than a chopstick in there to adjust it. Now for our final round, we are simply going to be decreasing, so single crocheting 2 together into every single stitch around, and this will decrease to a total of 6 stitches. Now after completing those decreases, we are going to fasten off, and then we're going to finish closing this opening by grabbing our yarn needle. Now we're going to be working through the front loops only of the remaining stitches and simply looping through. So you're going to loop through the front loop only of all 6 of those stitches. And once you have looped through, you kind of press it down a little, and then we're simply just going to pull it closed. So this will pull close the very bottom of this to be, closed so nothing comes out. You pull as tight as you want, and then you can weave in this end. If this pokes out at all at the bottom and bugs you, you can go right through the center and kind of pull it through to shape it a bit more flat if you want. Now, the other thing you can do before completely weaving in this tail end is if you want this attached to the inside of the clamshell, this is the time to do it. You can simply set your purl where you want it to stay in the shell and then tack it down. And that way it's not going to ever come out. It's going to be a purl that's always attached inside of there. I don't know why I enjoy mine separate. I'm not sure. Honestly, I really probably should tack it down because I'm probably going to lose it otherwise. But I think it's like really cute not tacked down. Maybe I'll come back and tack it down later. But I also want to talk about doing that blush. Now, this is where a cute little fun extra touch comes in, is if you have some blush, it really doesn't matter, blush or eyeshadow, you can grab a little bit of color there and then just dab on the sides to add those rosy cheeks. I always love adding the rosy cheeks. I think it's really, really cute. And this is a great way to do it. Yep, it's staining your yarn with makeup, but it works out great. You can always add more later if it kind of wears off a little bit, but I like those cute little rosy cheeks. And then you can just simply either place your purl in there or it's already stuck in there, and then you can enjoy this as a cute little plushie. I adore this cute little clam. It's really fun having that texture from the wheat stitch. I love what it adds to this, and it was so much fun to make. I am creating an entire series of a wheat stitch amigurumi collection for Under the Sea, so be sure to check out the other patterns in this collection, as well as hit that subscribe button, join my newsletter so that you know the next time I release something fun, and please come back and try your next project soon. Thank you.